at a club.
Popular rapper arrested. He's accused of a security guard at a South Florida gentleman's club and will remain behind bars.
Foogiano, the Atlanta-based rapper whose real name is Kwame Brown, is represented by Gucci Mane. Take a look.
Foogiano just walked out of prison after 5 years, and somehow he's still tied to Gucci Mane. That's crazy when you really sit and think about it. The man spent half a decade locked up while everything around him kept moving fast back in 2021. The whole music scene flipped upside down, new artists blew up. Trends shifted and streaming numbers kept rising without his name in the mix. While he was gone, opportunities came and went. Features he could have gone, songs that could have elevated his name never happened. That's 5 years of growth, 5 years of exposure, and 5 years of serious money that slipped through. His hands now fast forward to April 2026. Kwame Khalil Brown, better known as Foogiano, walks free and lands right back into the same contract he signed in March 2020. That's not random. And it's definitely deeper than just loyalty. This right here shows how record deals are really structured behind the ache. And it seems labels build contracts to protect themselves long-term no matter what happens. Artists can be smart, connected, and aware, but still end up locked into agreements that outlast their buzz, their moment, and sometimes even their entire run in the game. Gucci Mane gave Foogiano a $1 million deal. And yeah, that sounds huge at first. It feels like a dream come true. But in the music industry, that kind of money is never simple. That million comes with pressure and conditions.
Foogiano, the Atlanta-based rapper whose real name is Kwame Brown, is represented by Gucci Mane. Take a look. This is a booking photo just in. U.S. Marshals now say they tracked down the 27-year-old in Memphis last week. They tell us they had been trying to find him for 3 months after he apparently melted off his court-ordered ankle monitor, and they tried to track him down there.
This is a booking photo just in. U.S. Marshals now say they tracked down the 27-year-old in Memphis last week. They tell us they had been trying to find him for 3 months after he apparently melted off his court-ordered ankle monitor, and they tried to track him down there. It has to be paid back before the artist starts seeing real profit. So before Foogiano can collect another dollar from his music, that advance has to be fully recouped, and that changes everything. That $1 million really means Gucci Mane gets control over your music, your name, your image, and even your exit from the deal. For however many album cycles are locked into that contract, it doesn't matter if you're recording in a studio or sitting behind bars in Tennessee, the deal keeps running. Now, look at the situation today. Foogiano is basically the last one holding it down at 1017 Records. Pooh Shiesty is locked up facing life after being accused of a serious robbery situation tied to a Dallas studio incident, all while trying to break free from his contract. That alone raises questions. Then you've got Big Scar gone, Enchanting gone, Hot Boy West serving a long sentence, and the rest of the 1017 roster officially dropped. Back in October 2024, only 2 names were left standing, Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano. Now one is dealing with major federal charges, and the other just walked out after years away. That's not a normal label situation at all. Take a second and really think about how this played out. While everyone was distracted by headlines and public drama, Gucci Mane was making calculated moves behind the scenes, legally and strategically keeping everything locked in on paper. Now let's get into Foogiano's story. Born Kwame Khalil Brown on July 4th, 1993. He's from Greensboro, Georgia, not Atlanta, not Memphis. None of those major music hubs, just a small town in Greene County where making it out is tough and the path to fame is narrow. Growing up, he listened to artists you'd expect from that region, names like T.I. Lil Wayne, and eventually Gucci Mane himself, who would later become his label boss. He was raised with his mother, 3 brothers, and 1 sister, and by his teenage years, he was already dealing with time in juvenile detention centers, which started shaping the road. He was heading down by 2013. He got picked up on burglary and robbery charges and ended up serving 3 years behind bars after doing that time. He came home and tried to shift his focus toward music. That part of his story matters because it sets up a deeper reality about how everything played out later. When Foogiano finally signed to 1017, he wasn't coming in with leverage or multiple deals lined up. He wasn't in a strong position to negotiate anything. He was a young artist from a small town with a record behind him, and the same rapper he looked up to growing up was now offering him a contract. That kind of situation already creates a heavy imbalance before anything is even signed. By 2019, Foogiano started building real attention through grassroots support and people pushing his music organically. His single Omali started gaining real traction, and by 2020 it got a remix featuring DaBaby, who was one of the biggest names out at that time. That remix pulled in around 5 million streams worldwide, and the video was hitting over 1 million views every single week at that point. His rise was obvious. Bigger labels started reaching out, including Atlantic Records, one of the biggest players in the industry. They saw potential and wanted in, but as Foogiano said himself in an early interview, "I walked out the door at Atlantic." Called whenever he talks, I'm all ears. He got through struggle to get here. That right there shows how much influence and respect Gucci Mane had over his decision. I've learned so much from him. That one line says everything about how this deal was. This wasn't about leverage or top negotiation at all. It came from admiration, from looking up to someone, from that feeling like if Gucci Mane believes in you, then you've already made it. Coming from Greensboro, Georgia, with limited opportunities and a past that follows you, getting that call from Gucci Mane right after a meeting with Atlantic Records must have felt unreal. It's the kind of moment that makes everything feel locked in, like the path is finally opening up. Then March 2020 hits and Foogiano signs to 1017 Records for $1 million deal. That's when everything officially starts moving. But that $1 million number needs to be looked at closely, because how fans see it and how it actually works behind the scenes are two completely different things in the music business. That advance is not free money at all. It's a loan that has to be earned back before Foogiano can make a single dollar from album sales, streaming, or any other income tied to the label. That full amount has to be recouped first. The label gets paid back before the artist sees real profit, and that changes the whole picture. Now it goes even deeper. Deals like this, especially ones that look like what 1017 was offering, are often structured as 360 deals. That means the label doesn't just earn from the music itself, they can also take a cut from touring, merchandise, brand deals, and even YouTube revenues, sync deals, licensing, brand partnerships, all of it. The label isn't just involved in your albums, they're tied into your entire career, and that changes everything when you really break it down. So, when Foogiano signed that $1 million deal, that money didn't just sit in his account. It was spread across recording costs, marketing pushes, music videos, promo runs, and distribution. Every move made to build his name came with a price attached. Every dollar spent promoting DaBaby, every dollar put into the DaBaby remix video, every investment from Atlantic Records and 1017 to boost his visibility, all of that adds up. And here's the key part. It all gets added to what he already owes. That full amount has to be earned back before he sees real profit. Everything comes out of his share first, and that can take a long time to balance out. His debut album, DaBaby, dropped in November 2020 and hit #1 on Billboard's Heatseekers chart. That's a solid milestone, no doubt, but that chart focuses on newer artists still building their commercial reach. The numbers look good on paper, but they weren't enough to quickly cover $1 million advance plus all those extra expenses. He was still at the beginning of his run, still building momentum. Then December 2020 came fast. Just weeks after dropping his first album, Foogiano had a serious run-in with law enforcement in Georgia. Reports say officers found a firearm and cash on him during the stop. At that time, he was already on probation connected to his earlier case, which made the situation even more intense for someone already on probation. Getting caught with a firearm wasn't just another legal issue. It could seriously shut everything down. He was arrested and charged as a convicted felon in possession of a firearm, then later released on a $50 zero bond. The conditions were strict: wear an ankle monitor and stay within the state of Georgia. But then things took a sharp turn. He removed the ankle monitor, and that moment changed everything. People often frame it as a careless or emotional decision, and maybe part of it was, but there's more behind it. This is someone who had been dealing with the system since his teenage years, and right when his music career was starting to gain real traction, everything began closing in fast under that kind of pressure. He made a move that only made the situation worse. He left and stayed out of reach for about 3 months. Eventually, federal agents located him in Memphis, Tennessee in March 2021, bringing everything to a halt. By May 2021, Foogiano was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. 5 full years in 5 full years, all following that decision to remove ankle monitor and leave while under restrictions. Around that time, his label president, Levon Sanders, also known as Boomin, spoke out publicly, claiming Foogiano was innocent, saying someone else had taken responsibility for the firearm. He also criticized Greene County's handling of the case, calling the outcome unfair. Whether those claims were true or not, the courts did not side with him. The sentence stood at 5 years, and here's the part most people overlooked at the time: what happened to the contract. Nothing changed at all. The contract didn't pause. It didn't get canceled, and Gucci Mane did not let Foogiano out of the deal. Everything stayed exactly the same on paper. The music he had already recorded still belonged to the label, and that advance he received still had to be paid back. These agreements are built. A legal conviction does not automatically free an artist from their contract, and it definitely doesn't clear any financial obligations tied to it. So while Foogiano was serving time, the deal stayed active, and the label still held control over his work from 2021 to 2026. Things around 1017 Records got extremely unstable. Pooh Shiesty, who was the label's biggest artist at the time, known for Back in Blood, which reached number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 and went 5 times platinum, ended up getting arrested in June 2021 in connection to a serious incident at a club.
Popular rapper arrested. He's accused of a security guard at a South Florida gentleman's club and will remain behind bars. A judge denied bond for 21-year-old Longtrell Williams, known as Pooh Shiesty. Police say he was performing at King of Diamonds in Miami over Memorial Day weekend.
Later on, he was also charged in connection to a 2020 situation in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida in January 2022. He pleaded guilty to federal conspiracy charges and was sentenced to 5 years. Just like that, the label's biggest momentum driver was gone. Then in April that same year, another major loss hit. Big Scar, one of the most promising artists on the roster, passed away in December 2022 at just 22 years old. Due to an overdose, that moment shook everything around the label and added even more weight to an already heavy situation. His passing hit hard, both personally for those around him and on the business side for the label that was banking on his rise. That loss alone shifted a lot of momentum. Then Enchanting 1017's breakout female artist also passed away in early 2023 due to an overdose. She was only 26, and that added another tragic moment to an already difficult stretch. Hot Boy West, signed to 1017 in July 2021, later received a 15-year sentence tied to a serious assault case involving the mothers of his children. One situation after another kept stacking up, and it started to show how unstable everything had become. The roster Gucci Mane built with so much hype in 2020 began falling apart fast. Artists passed away, others were locked up, and some simply lost momentum. By October 2024, Gucci Mane recorded a video from his car speaking directly like he was making an official announcement, and revealed he was letting go of nearly everyone on the roster. But not everyone. The exact words Gucci used were "I'm looking at my profit and loss statement and me being a businessman. I think that I'm going to have to release almost all of my artists except for Pooh Shiesty and Foogiano. This is a decision I didn't want to make. I thought about it. I could keep all of them under the contract, but I said, hey, let's just make the unselfish decision and let them take their talents elsewhere." That's how he framed it, like it was a generous move. But if you look closer, it tells a different story. The ones he kept were the artists with the strongest commercial value, the ones most likely to keep generating numbers. He kept the 2 artists who still had time left on their contracts. He kept the 2 names whose music was still bringing in the most value from their catalog. Pooh Shiesty had a 5 times platinum record, and Foogiano had a gold single with Amali. The rest of the roster hadn't reached that same commercial level. So let's be clear, this wasn't generosity at all. This was a business decision based on profit and loss, dressed up to sound like a favor. The artists bringing in value stayed, and the ones who weren't were let go. Not out of kindness, but because it no longer made financial sense to keep them. And here's the part that really stands out. Both of the artists he kept were incarcerated at the time. Think about that for a second. When that October 2024 announcement dropped, the entire label was basically reduced to 2 artists who were both behind bars. Pooh Shiesty was finishing his 5-year sentence, and Foogiano was doing the same. Neither of them was in a position to negotiate, speak out freely, quickly reach legal support, or make any real moves to step away from the deal. They were locked in both physically and contractually. Meanwhile, the contract stayed active whole time. By keeping them signed, Gucci Mane maintained control over their masters, any future releases, and their overall brand without needing to make immediate moves while they were serving their time. That kind of setup creates a serious advantage. That's not random at all. That's leverage in action. And before focusing back on Foogiano, there's another situation involving Pooh Shiesty in early 2020 that really shows how intense these 1017 deals can feel, and how far things can go when an artist starts to feel stuck inside one Pooh Shiesty. was released from prison in October 2025 after serving over 3 years of his 5-year sentence, and he didn't waste any time getting back to music. Within weeks, he dropped FDO, and it shot straight to the top of Billboard's Hot R&B and Hip-Hop Songs chart and the Hot Rap Songs chart. That moment proved he still had strong influence, still had fans, and still knew how to make records that connect. Everything was lined up for a major comeback, but there was one thing still in place. He was still signed to 1017. Reports from prosecutors claimed that he wasn't happy with the terms of his deal. At some point in late 2025 or early 2026, he reportedly asked Gucci Mane directly to be the fighty. To be released from the contract. According to those same claims, Gucci Mane refused. What comes next depends on how you look at it. Some might see it as someone feeling trapped in a difficult situation. Others might see it as reckless decisions going too far. Either way, it's something the legal system is handling, and the full truth is left to the courts. What has been alleged is serious. On January 10th, 2026, prosecutors claim Pooh Shiesty set up what was presented as a business meeting at a recording studio in Dallas, Texas. Gucci Mane and 2 associates, described as industry professionals, traveled. They're expecting a normal meeting, but once inside, prosecutors say the situation changed fast. They allege that multiple individuals, including Pooh Shiesty, his father Raylo Williams Sr., and rapper Big 30, were involved in a planned takeover of the space. Authorities claim a weapon was shown. One person physically restrained to the point of nearly losing consciousness, and the studio exit was blocked, preventing anyone from leaving. What makes this situation even more intense is what it says about control in the music business. When an artist signs a deal like this, they're not just signing for the moment, they're locking in years of obligation that don't stop just because life takes a turn. Even when everything slows down or completely stops, the paperwork keeps moving. The label still owns the music, still controls the releases, and still collects from anything tied to that contract. That time away doesn't cancel anything. It can actually make things harder to recover from. For Foogiano, this is where things get real complicated. He just came home in 2026, stepping back into a world that moved on without him. For 5 years, new artists took over, new sounds became popular, and the audience shifted fast. Now he has to rebuild from that position while still being tied into an agreement that never paused. And the big question is, what does that comeback even look like under those conditions? Because it's not just about making hits anymore. It's about doing it while the contract is still taking its share, while expectations are higher than ever, and while the clock that started back in 2020 never actually stopped ticking. According to prosecutors, the people involved were stripped of valuable items like Rolex watches, jewelry, cash, and personal belongings, including a wedding ring. It's also alleged that Gucci Mane was pressured into signing documents that would release Pooh Shiesty from his contract. Investigators claim one of the co-defendants even recorded the moment on a phone all night. Individuals were hit with federal charges tied to conspiracy and kidnapping, which is extremely serious and carries heavy potential penalties. Pooh Shiesty was denied bond, and the judge made it clear during the hearing that there was enough evidence presented to move the case forward, stating there was probable cause connected to the accusations. Now, on the other side, defense attorney Bradford Cohen has strongly challenged the case, pointed out that it took months for charges to be filed, claimed there's no confirmed contract document, presented no verified video of any signing, and said that some of the individuals involved weren't even formally interviewed before the complaint was made. He also described early witness statements as very questionable, raising doubts about how solid the case really is. Those are serious points, and the full outcome will depend on how everything plays out in court. But regardless of how the legal situation ends, one thing stands out: the fact that something this extreme is even being discussed shows how intense these contract situations can become when someone feels like they can't exit through normal business or legal paths. It can lead to situations that spiral fast and get out of control. Even if every detail isn't proven, the bigger picture is still there. The conflict itself highlights much power labels can hold in these agreements, and how difficult it can be for an artist to simply walk away once everything is signed and locked in. That right there is the real story. Not long after the arrests made headlines, Gucci Mane dropped a diss track called A Crash Dummy, produced by Zaytoven, and one line had the whole internet talking. He said, "I'll tell the truth, you went out like a real crash dummy, and after all that, boy, you still signed to me." That line hit hard because of what it was implying. Even after everything that was being reported, the contract was still active. Even with all legal issues and public drama, Gucci Mane made it clear through the track that the deal had not changed. His message was direct. No matter what happened in that Dallas studio, the paperwork still stood. The contract was still his, the agreement was still in place, and he wasn't backing off. Position, he used the moment to remind everyone that business comes first, and those signatures still carry weight. He even referenced the well-known situation involving Suge Knight, Dr. Dre, and Eazy-E, where Dre was allegedly pressured into signing his release, but Gucci Mane flipped that comparison, making it clear he wasn't going to handle things the same way in his view. He was holding on to the deal, the masters, and the control that came with it. Then, on April 21, 2026, just weeks after Pooh Shiesty's federal case took over headlines, Foogiano walked out of prison. A photo shared by No Jumper showed him smiling, showing his grills and looking relieved to finally be free. That moment marked a new chapter. But the situation around him was still far from simple. Producer Spiff made it linked up with him and posted a selfie on Instagram stories with the caption, "No more free food." That post alone had people talking fast. His personal photographer followed up with "Stay free, welcome home." And the reactions instantly flooded, and fans went crazy in the comments. Messages like, "I need some music," "Sap," and 4 years later, and he's back, started stacking up quick. Everyone was locked in on the verdict, in on the comeback, wondering what version of him would return after all that time away. But here's the question. Nobody was really asking, at least not loud enough. What exactly is he coming back? He comes home still signed to 1017. He returns as basically the only active artist on a label where the other major name is currently dealing with a serious federal case in Texas. That alone shifts the entire situation, and it doesn't stop there. He's stepping back into a music industry that kept moving. Without him for 5 full years, trends changed, new stars took over, and now he has to find his place again in a completely different back in 2020. Still has to be earned back before he can see real royalties. The deal was signed at a time when he didn't have much control under a label laid by someone he had looked up to for years. And here's the part that really stands out. The contract sat untouched for 5 straight years while he released 0 commercial music. No new songs, no features, nothing. The agreement still expects output, still expects projects, and now everything picks back up from where it left off, like the clock never actually stopped. Gucci Mane, during his October 2024 announcement about clearing out most of the roster, framed keeping Foogiano as a straight business decision. He pointed to Foogiano's gold single, mentioned his chart performance, and highlighted the value he believed was still there in the artist, but what he didn't say speaks just as loud at that time. Foogiano was sitting in federal prison with no real leverage, no competing offers, and no way to publicly push back or renegotiate anything. That kind of position leaves an artist with very little control over what happens next. For the label, holding on to an artist in that situation doesn't come with heavy costs. There's no need to book studio sessions, no need to shoot videos, no major promo budgets being spent. The contract just stays active, waiting. And when the artist comes home, the label is first in line for QC, in line for whatever they create next. That's the part that stands out. Gucci Mane didn't just sign a deal years ago. He secured the rights to Foogiano's next chapter, the comeback story, the redemption run, the moment fans are now watching closely. All of that was locked in ahead of time with terms that tie back to that original agreement. And that is where things get interesting. The value of that deal isn't just in what already happened. It's in what's about to happen next. The energy, the attention, the curiosity around his return, all of that feeds right back into a contract that was signed years earlier. This kind of situation isn't new when it comes to 1017 either. The label's history shows a pattern where expectations and reality don't always match. Take Asian Doll, for example, the first female artist signed to 1017, who once described the environment as feeling like family when she first connected with Gucci Mane and his wife Keisha Kawar. 2 years later, in January 2020, she was publicly asking to be released from the label. She said she reached out to Gucci Mane, and he agreed to let her go just like that. She announced she was officially independent. But what she didn't really break down was everything it took to get there, the conversations behind closed doors, the legal steps, the possible costs tied to leaving. None of that was fully explained, and while she stepped away, she also left behind the momentum she had built during her time with 1017. That buzz had already peaked and wasn't turning into the kind of commercial success that gives an artist strong negotiating power. Without that leverage, walking away can come at a price, even if it looks smooth on the surface. Then you have Lil Quill and Young Mel, 2 Atlanta artists who had real local buzz when they first signed. People were paying attention, the energy was there, but over time they quietly disappeared from the roster with barely any announcement. That's how it goes. Sometimes when artists aren't bringing in strong numbers, labels aren't rushing to hold on to them. But the moment an artist starts generating real revenue, everything shifts fast. Suddenly, the contract terms that were once overlooked become the most important thing in the room. And this pattern isn't new for 1017, going all the way back to its early days in 2007. The label has seen artists rise quickly under Gucci Mane's platform, only to struggle to maintain that same level once. Circumstances Change hip-hop history shows this pattern clearly. Young Thug became one of the biggest names out of Atlanta's trap era. But his most defining moves happened after he stepped away from Gucci Mane's direct influence. Not because of it, that pattern keeps repeating. 1017 has a strong track record when it comes to spot talent early. Gucci Mane has a sharp ear. No doubt he can recognize potential before the rest of the industry even notices. But here's where things shift: the way the contracts are structured, the terms inside those deals, and how the business is set up. It often gives the label the upper hand and the dent. Artists signing these deals are usually young, coming from tough situations, sometimes with records that limit their opportunities. And with a lot of respect for Gucci Mane himself, that kind of admiration can influence decisions in the room. It can make it harder to question terms or push for better conditions, and when you look at it closely, it feels less random and more like a system that keeps repeating itself. Now bring it back to Foogiano. He walked out of prison at 32 years old. Those key years where artists usually get heavy label support and promotion were largely taken away. That timing matters more than people realize. The rap scene in 2026 is completely different from what it was in 2020. Streaming platforms are pushing new faces. Playlists are highlighting different names. And the attention is shifting. Artists who were on his level back then have either moved far ahead or stepped out of the spotlight. Still, he has a voice and he has a story to tell, and in hip-hop, comebacks do happen sometimes. Time away combined with real-life experience can bring a whole new level of authenticity that people connect with. That kind of comeback story can pull people, and fast fans love a return later, especially when there's real history behind it and not just industry hype. But here's where things get complicated again. Even with all that attention, he's still moving within the limits of that same contract. Every song he drops, every stream he generates, every move he makes is still connected to a deal that was signed years ago under completely different circumstances. So while the public sees a fresh start behind the scenes, it's not fully a reset. It's more like picking up right where things paused. Except now the pressure is even higher, expectations are bigger, the spotlight is stronger, business side is still locked in, and timing plays a huge role. Here the industry doesn't slow down for anyone. 5 years away means rebuilding connections, rebuilding momentum, and proving relevance all over again in a space that already moved on. But at the same time, that gap can create curiosity. People want to hear what he sounds like now, what his mindset is, and how those years changed him. That attention can turn into numbers quickly if the music connects. So now everything comes down to execution. Can he drop the right records at the right time? Can he cut through a crowded scene while still tied into a deal that takes its share? Because this next run isn't just about talent. It's about navigating a system that has already been in motion the entire time. What you rap about can hit harder than any marketing plan, no question. But to really turn that into success, you need freedom to create strong promotion and a real partnership with your label, and in this case that label is Gucci Mane, the same Gucci Mane who was just all over headlines connected to that serious situation involving another artist, the same Gucci Mane who responded on a track saying that artist is still signed, the deal is still active, and business no matter what actually happened in that studio. Gucci Mane made his stance clear. He even compared himself to Birdman on Crash Dummy, bringing up that whole Cash Money era where contract disputes turned into one of the biggest industry conflicts ever. That comparison wasn't random. It was a message. He's showing exactly how he views contracts. He's showing that paperwork comes first, and once it's signed, it holds weight, no matter what situations come up around it. Now look at Foogiano. He just came home to freedom, but stepped right back into that same deal. He's in it alone. Now with the other major artists from the label dealing with a federal case, and the entire industry watching closely to see what move he makes next, fans are ready for his comeback. The attention is there, and the moment is set, but at the same time that contract is still active, still expecting out, still requiring that investment to be earned back before real profit shows up, and that's the twist. In all of this, he walked out of one situation and straight into another kind of system that still controls a big part of his path, a deal created when the balance of power wasn't in his favor, and one that now shapes everything he does moving forward. If you made it this far, tap that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments too, because this situation has a lot of layers, and people are seeing it from all angles, and D-Ape on top of that. What advance he received.